Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Miller's Military Moments. I'm your host, Master Sergeant Jason Miller, and today again we've got Grant Belvin, a former U.S. Marine scout sniper, and just incredible opportunity to continue his story with us. But before we get into that, one really big cool announcement is just we've hit 1,000 downloads on the podcast, and I'm just so excited about that. So many people, listening and watching on YouTube, and the feedback that I get, from a lot of people is just really positive and really great. Helps me to continue, honestly, because when I first started, I had no idea, would anybody care? I'm sharing my story about shining some boots and hanging out in the motor pool and build my own shower in Iraq or whatever. So, so thank you all. I just appreciate that. Never imagined 1,000 downloads. And so, we're only like even a couple years into my career, and we're a few episodes into Grant's, time in the Marine Corps. So we've got a long way to go, a lot of stories and shenanigans, to talk about in a lot of events. So I'm looking forward to just, some more incredible stories and more time sharing my experiences and other people's experiences with you all too. So I'm going to start bringing on some of the people that I've participated in these shenanigans, and also my time overseas with too. So look forward to that. But again, just thank you all so much. I appreciate that. And, the best place to find me, depending on where you're listening or watching, is really millersmilitarymoments.com. You can go to the website and, you can get links to the YouTube channel and to the podcast episodes. So, check me out there. It's easier to find everything from there. So, but again, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. 13 days left in the Army. I gotta throw that one out there. 13 days. So I sign out, retire, and get to move on to different things. So pretty excited. We're ready. My family's ready, and it's been a long 20 years. So, but lucky for you all, the podcast will continue. It's not going to stop in 13 days. So that would be a whole lot to tell in the next 13 days. So it'll continue. And then I've got another project in the works too that'll come out later this summer. But anyway, so some pretty exciting things. So part 4 with Grant, just a little recap for the listeners. So really he's landed in Fallujah, Iraq in June of 2004. And he told us, they got incoming indirect fire, which is like mortar rounds, right when they got there. They're doing their right seat, left seat rides, which is where the incoming unit goes with the outgoing unit, kind of learns like the routes and the areas and what they do and some tricks of the trade, essentially. And also he told us a story about the one of the sniper teams, the entire team that got taken out. And there's some things that they don't know exactly the situation happened, whether they were school trained, they made some mistakes and went to the same place every time. Not real sure, but it's important because obviously that's what he's doing. He's a sniper team chief, team leader, and it can, put you on a different edge when you are all of a sudden, holy, this is my job, and an entire team just got taken out. And now we just got here. So that kind of catches us up. And so obviously, it's just great to have you, Grant, back on the show, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. It's I'm definitely having fun, and I'm glad you keep having me back on.
Yeah, dude, no problem, man. I'm also having a great time. I love these shows and listening, to your stories, and I can tell you the listeners absolutely, are having a great time hearing your stories and the different perspectives from the Army. You and I talk off air about some of the differences that are kind of funny, but some of them are still the same. Some of the, I don't even know, bureaucracy shenanigans, what we go through. So, but yeah, no, it's great. Definitely. And I know the listeners are definitely having a great time. So, Yeah. So, okay. So tell us, tell us the mood of you, your team. Did things like change, after the mortar fire and the team get taken out? Are y'all ready, trained, confident? Start walking us through those things.
So as far as the mood goes, me personally, that was our first experience with indirect fire. So it was a real eye opener to the unpredictability of being over there in that region at that period of time. So it was very sobering because we were brand new in country, not brand new, but brand new in country at that time, and we had our last deployment. Everybody was friendly at the time we left. With the as far as the Iraqis, they were all surrendering and that sort of thing. So to come into this where everyone's hostile was a totally different story. And then with the other sniper team getting taken out in their position, that was we were wondering, wow, is the enemy is very sophisticated apparently if they can do that. I mean, they must know what they're doing. They know our SOPs, our TTPs. I mean, what do they what do they not know about us? So it was very sobering. Those two events pretty much back to back, going in at that time. So we were definitely geared up and on edge. For people the civilians that don't understand that type of deployment, and even guys in now that aren't facing those types of deployments, you as time goes on in the deployment and you experience more of those things, you start to go numb and you're mentally detached and emotionally detached your brain does that as a survival mechanism. So being brand new or fresh to that type of combat is really puts you on edge. The guys who were doing left seat, right seat with, they had been there since December. Let's see, not December, January, February time frame. And so they were used to it. They were just like, whatever,
Okay.
And, but we were like, oh man, what's going on here? This is crazy. But, so we started doing the left seat, right seat with those guys. And we went out so the battalion was split up. There's 3 companies in the infantry battalion, 3 line companies. So those companies got split up throughout the AO, and they had their own forward operating bases within the area of operations that we were assigned to. And we went out with one of them. There were one company was at an Iraqi National Guard compound, and then another company was across the street in this town outside of Fallujah called Al Gharma, spelled Karma, Karma. And so we get to that location with this team, this other team that we're doing left seat, right seat with, a couple buddies that I went to sniper school with, which was cool. And they start telling us about it. We get, into the compound that they're at, and they're in these buildings, but they're sheet metal buildings. It's an industrial complex, but they're not concrete buildings, which was not really normal. Most buildings were concrete, but these were sheet metal buildings.
Right.
I guess they were just storage for something. So they had sheet metal rooftops, and we go into where the CP is and some other, I guess the headquarters element where they slept. And there's holes in the roof from mortars. There's bits of concrete chipped up from mortar impacts in there. And
wow.
They're like, yeah, that's where the mortars came in, a few weeks ago or something. And they had the concrete barriers that we had to get under for those indirect fire attacks that were in our other camp. They had those within those metal buildings, so they could get into those concrete barriers
Oh
if they
my
had
God.
incoming. Yeah. So we were like, what? Are
Wow.
you serious?
So your protection is, yeah, your protection is inside the building that you're in. Like,
Yeah.
that is crazy.
Yeah. So you're sleeping. Same thing with the tents in that other compound. We're like, well, this isn't any protection from indirect fire. So we'll just hope we don't get mortared at night. So,
Right.
yeah. And then, so we're getting ready to go out on this patrol. They're just kind of doing a area patrol, recon patrol with us, just to show us the area, just to familiarize us with the area. So we've got all this gear. Like, we're thinking, like, oh, from what we've seen the last week or so, we're gonna need all this stuff, like 300 something rounds of ammo, 3 gallons of water, chow, all this stuff. And they're like,
Right.
yeah, we're just taking like 150 rounds and a Camelback, and that's it. And we're like weighted down to these packs because we're like, we don't know what we're going to encounter. And they're like, don't worry about it, man. You'll be good. So, so we're loading up on these 7 tons inside the compound, but right outside the gate to the compound. And they're like, they start telling us, they're like, yeah, we need to probably hurry up because they'll start shooting indirect fire at us when they know we're going out on a patrol and the vehicles are staged for X number of minutes. They'll start shooting at us with mortars. So we're like, are you serious, man?
God.
We got to get out of here. Let's get this thing on the road.
So let's go. I mean, yeah, absolutely got to get going. And then so they can see you and they're watching you then.
Yeah. I mean, it had a tall fence, but I mean there's, it's a residential area around. So they know when those 7 tons are staged up, they're on, they're sitting there all together. Marines are loading up on the 7 tons. So yeah, that they could definitely tell we were about to mount up and leave. So we go out and patrol, and that first patrol, of course, we didn't need a quarter of the stuff we brought because, the guys knew how it was and we didn't. And we were green in the area at the time. So it's, it's all a learning experience. But that was our first patrol there. And then, of course, uneventful. We just kind of went around the area and learned that area. So what was interesting too was that our AO bordered the Army AO that started at Abu Ghraib prison and went east to Baghdad and beyond, or wherever it went. But so one of our infantry companies was stationed there at Abu Ghraib prison, and I got to go there, and that was the place to be because that was the Army base. So they had an awesome chow hall. They had ice cream in the chow hall. They had these contractors that came out and cooked the food. It was like they would cook all this American food. They were from, like, I don't know, India or something. And they came in and they made like fried catfish and all this, all the typical American food. And you could eat as much as you wanted. And all these Marines at these other bases were getting MREs. And the ones at our battalion CP, that first location we went to, they were fortunate enough to get some hot chow every day. But the guys out at these other FOBs, is what we called them, forward operating bases, they were they got MREs. So if you were at the prison, which we were at the prison for a couple of months, you were living the life. Because the Army pulled security there. No Marines had to pull security.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was a huge base. Nice. Awesome chow hall, good areas to sleep, concrete fortified places. The whole 9 yards. And this was not long after the whole Army deal went down at Abu Ghraib, with the pictures and all that stuff. So it was kind of interesting to go into that prison and be like, oh, this is where all that stuff took place. Interesting. So, yeah. So each infantry company had an area to patrol that was outside of Fallujah. So two companies took that town, Garma and North, and then the other company that was at Abu Ghraib prison had another small town that went out. And so we started patrol. We would run. Initially, we didn't really know how we were going to operate. We had one team embedded with each company, and then 3 teams in general support of the battalion's missions. So initially, I was embedded or attached to that company that was at Abu Ghraib prison, and we would run patrols out of the prison. Mostly what we would run, of course, after initially going out and doing some reconnaissance and figuring out what was where and getting the lay of the land and being able to navigate, we started, mainly the infantry companies. We always patrolled on foot. We never went out mounted up on vehicles or anything. And we pretty much had to go at night. So we would get on a night shift routine. We would patrol all night from, dusk or after dusk till just before dawn. We probably, I'll tell you the first story that was the first KIA from our infantry battalion was it was 4 guys at one time. They were part of our headquarters company. So they were at this location. So that infantry company that was at that warehouse location that had the mortar holes in the roof, they moved to a more secure location because the company commander said, "No, we're not living here in these sheet metal buildings." So they moved to this old. Well, it wasn't old. It was an Iraqi school, but it was abandoned. So it was concrete. It was the tallest building around. It had 3 or 4 stories, and so there was a canal that ran right next to it, and an apple orchard across the canal that had the best apples I've ever had in my life. But so they one night they were a group, an element from our headquarters was there at that fob, and they were going to go back to our battalion headquarters, and they mounted up in Humvees, and this last Humvee in particular had these 4 guys in it. Well, I guess they had to back up, do like a K turn to get out, and the Humvee rolled into the canal and rolled on top of those guys, and they died under the Humvee in the canal. And so that was really it was pretty. It was hard hit because it was 4 really good dudes, and one of them was a staff sergeant, and the other 3 were junior Marines. But so we were like, man, holy cow, to get over here and then something like that happen is crazy.
Right. So I was going to hit on that right there. To let the listeners know, it's hard losing somebody anyway. Okay. Period. But when it's an accident, I don't know that it's harder because it's so preventable versus, in a combat, kinetic situation where you're fighting, exchanging fire, or an IED hits you. I don't know. It still sucks either way. I get it, but it just, and I've lost several to accidents, and the first one that I ever knew that we lost in 03 was to a rollover. Yeah. And right. Like it's totally preventable, and it's just, oh my gosh. Yeah. And those, staffs aren't with the 3 young guys. That's tough, man. And then it changes the mood. It changes, your focus, and oh my gosh. Yeah, that's tough. So I want to back up to you were talking about, so the difference between the people in 03 and really the the people that were surrendering. Okay, so the regular Iraqi army, and which is, we've talked about this before. President Bush at the time landed on the aircraft carrier in May of '03 and declared, mission accomplished. And so the original Iraqi military, for all intents and purposes, was defeated rather quickly, and they were the ones, surrendering to you guys and be like, "Hey, I'm done, man. I don't want any part of this." And as you stated, when you got to when that sniper team got taken out, like, okay, that was not something that the regular Iraqi people, and even the Iraqi Revolutionary Guard, who was better trained and better equipped, just didn't have the skills to do that. So that's very interesting. And, something that we have dealt with since the whole time we've been over there is, who is our enemy over there? Who are these people? And we essentially know that most of them come from Iran, and they are Iranian trained backed militia type groups. So they have gotten a lot of their training in Lebanon, and even Syria. And so they've had a lot of fighting going on. But so I think that is definitely an area where we didn't necessarily anticipate those people coming in. But it's a great point that you make, because that definitely changes things. All of a sudden, when your enemy is skilled, just as skilled as you are, and all of a sudden can take out a sniper team, like, whoa, wait a minute. And then where do these people come from? And when people like you are on the ground, you're with the people and you're trying to develop relationships and figure this all out, in your area of operation. I mean, but you just don't know who it is you're talking to. Mm-hmm. You have no idea who it really is. And it definitely changed. And, when we get into 04, 05, and then hell, when I got back in 06, Solder City, again, it's the same thing. It's who are these people? Where do they get these weapons from? And where do they get all this training from? And, interesting. Let's fast forward to 2021 yesterday on the news. Iraq just put out a public statement to Iran to saying, you better get your militias under control that are in our country and quit, doing this, or we're going to address it. And I'm thinking, now, finally, dude, they have been operating autonomously in your country for 20 years or probably longer. Yeah. So, come on. But so seeing that statement yesterday and then listening to Grant's story here, so the listeners can really kind of understand that, right, this isn't just your regular Iraqi people that are trying to stop the Marines from coming into Fallujah. I mean, look, and I know, look, our TTPs, we're not blowing shit up to blow shit up. Like, we're not just rolling through to roll through. I mean, we won't fire a shot if we don't have to. But when somebody fires a shot at us and says you're the enemy, well, okay, we're going to return fire and so on and so forth. But so anyway, I just, definitely wanted to point that out. That was a great thing that you pointed out to really show that this is a different fight that y'all are about to get in. Abu Ghraib, I got to fly in there a few times in 06 as a crew chief coming in and out of there. It was just spooky to me. Like, everybody's wearing the orange suits, all the prisoners and stuff. And, I don't know. I think I may have gotten out to grab a package or something, but I didn't hang out there too long, but I was just like, man, I don't know. This place is weird. Yeah. But I can see why the Marines, like the Army base in this case, because of the food and stuff like that. Like, absolutely. Yeah. You guys always typically have it tough, in that area. So
anyway, they don't spend any money on us there.
Back to you. No, not at all. So we talked about the mood. You guys, we've got the layout, the area of operation. Indirect fire is a real thing. And, it's interesting too, when you point out how you all wanted to take all this stuff. The outgoing unit's like, no, you don't really need all that stuff. And it's hard every time you do this, because we were the same in aviation a little bit, like, okay, well, we need to carry this, we need to carry that. And it's like, no, you don't need all that stuff. But it's hard for the incoming unit, until they really get comfortable with the layout of the land. And, becoming numb to that definitely is it's a survival mechanism, and detached. And so something that we dealt with too with the indirect fire is like, well, if it doesn't kill me, I mean, it wasn't meant to be, because there's nothing I can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if the alarm goes off, typically the first one's probably already hit, and that means I'm still alive. So, I'll jump in the bunker, but most of the time they hit before you know it, and it's tough. I mean,
Oh yeah.
but you do have to get to that point where you can't let it like, I don't even know the right word, like dictate your emotions and just be like so scared. Everyone, indirect fire,
Mm-hmm.
indirect fire. I mean, you just can't, or you'll be paralyzed and you won't do anything.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
yes. So y'all got the layout of the land. You've got some patrols going. Relationship wise with the people. You lost your first guys to kind of a non-combat situation. Are you getting making contact with the enemy? Is it starting to pick up through that summer? How is that kind of starting to progress for you guys?
Yeah, so they had a police station there in Garma, and they had some police officers. And just for context, the police officers there, as far as relating it to something, it's not relatable at all to police officers here in the U.S. They were more like part-time. They didn't have much of a vested interest, and it was because the whole dynamic of the country under the Saddam regime was they were so oppressed, there was no incentive to better themselves. So that was part of it. But they were also being attacked by these foreign fighters. So those foreign fighters would attack that police station in Garma pretty regular. Well, I say regular. They attacked it a few times when we first got there. But then we moved, I think we moved a platoon of infantry guys there at the police station to help them with security, and they didn't attack after that. But so shortly after that, Humvee rolled over in that same school building. We had a corpsman, Navy corpsman that was in our platoon. That he's a medic. For those that don't know, Navy corpsman is the same thing as an Army medic. So he operated with another sniper platoon prior to that deployment with another infantry battalion, and he came over to our battalion to deploy with us. So he got put in our platoon. So he operated with a sniper team, and they were at the school building, and he was in the stairwell, like walking downstairs to go to the bathroom, go get chow or something. And some of the foreign nationals, some of the enemy guys, insurgents, they fired a rocket at the building, at the school building. And when I say rocket, it's like one of the old Chinese rockets. They're about 6 feet long and, I don't know, 150 millimeters or something like that. So pretty good size. And that rocket hit the building because, of course, it's a concrete building, but it hit the building right where he was walking down the stairwell. That rocket exploded right there. It blew a hole in the building, and with such force that it blew his left arm off. Like his arm was gone.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So they had to tourniquet him up and get him to the main base right outside of Fallujah, and he had to fly out. And I want to say that was immediate, like pretty much immediately after that Humvee accident. It could have been before, but it was right around that same time frame. So that was our first platoon casualty. Was our doc. And so that was like, whoa, yeah. Dude. That's, this is, again, if we didn't know this was real, yep, it's real. So
right, it's real now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that, we were at that point, we were highly pissed. And we were like, all right, we're we're going to avenge this. But so we continued with what we were doing. We went out on patrol and didn't really know what to expect at first, because this is still like the first month we were there, and we started getting we knew the indirect fire was coming in, so we're like, all right, we're going to go out at night and try to find these indirect fire locations that these guys are shooting these mortars and these rockets from. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to try to find these guys and take these guys out. So we started running those patrols, and that was our mission for the first couple months. Well, first month there, first month and a half. And then during that time, the battalion started experiencing a lot of IED attacks on these mounted patrols that the infantry guys were going on. Mm-hmm. They were pretty severe in some cases, as far as guys getting killed in action or badly wounded in action. So then our missions shifted to counter IED missions. So we would still only go out at night. Daytime, we were just too vulnerable during the day because it's so wide open where we were. There were a lot of where we were was suburban, if I had to describe it. We were outside of Fallujah, but there were these smaller towns around and kind of suburban areas / farms. So not a lot of vegetation, some vegetation, but not a lot. So we had to operate at night as far as foot patrol in a 4-man team, because we just didn't have the manpower to fight off a larger force during the day. So we shifted towards counter IED and counter indirect fire missions. We located a few firing positions, is what it appeared to be with us. They had kind of like mortars, use stakes in the ground to mark different areas. They had like these lanes set up with stakes and aiming positions and firing positions that were outside of Abu Ghraib. We found some of those and took those down, but we never actually saw a guy actively burying an IED or actively setting up an indirect fire position, not once. So we were getting pretty desperate, and at one point, my platoon commander decided we were going to start doing these missions where we would be pretty covert as far as using civilian vehicles and driving around to try to find these guys. So we started doing that, and that didn't really amount to much. We got a little bit more information as far as movement around because we were in regular vehicles. So we were wearing the garb and had facial hair and stuff. So we blended in for the most part with the Iraqis. But we just got more of an idea of their movement patterns and that sort of thing, and the traffic pattern that was normal versus a traffic pattern when a U.S. convoy comes through. It's totally different. So did that, and then my team started, me personally, I started getting a little bit like angry at the fact that we're still getting mortared, we're still getting IEDs, hitting vehicles, and we never see these guys doing anything. So we had this counterintelligence team, Marine counterintelligence team that is a 2-man team, and there was one at our headquarters and there was one at the prison. And these guys, just for reference, they have to be in their second, at least in their second enlistment in the Marine Corps, and their MOS school. They go train with the CIA. So they have a lot of cool high-speed training. And I linked up with those guys, and I was like, hey, let's do some missions together and see if we can work something out. So they're like, oh, yeah, that's cool. we've got all this, information and this intelligence. How about y'all go confirm or deny whether or not this stuff's going on? So, oh yeah, that's cool. So we're like, all right, so to be less, and we requested, we're like, hey, why don't y'all come on patrol with us? And we can probably be a lot more effective because they could speak decent Arabic.
Right.
So we were going to go and like just encounter these people out in town and just not shake them down, but be like, hey, we're trying to find this and this. What do you know? But their command wouldn't let them go on patrol with us. So I was like, all right, well, what missions can we do? And they gave us some missions. So what we did was we went slick, which means we just had camis and our chest rigs, and that was it. We didn't have helmets, body armor, nothing like that. So we were not as intimidating. Of course, we only did this at night. We didn't do this during the day. So we went out at night,
right?
And we would go, instead of waiting on these main MSRs for someone to come bury an IED, we just went out in the town and started walking around and started talking to some people. Of course, it was difficult. The language barrier was pretty high. We knew some phrases. We didn't know much, but we did what we could. And of course, that didn't amount to much because the language barrier was so big. But most of the people that we talked to were pretty receptive. I mean, you can tell the body language from the people that were not for us being there and the people who wanted the insurgents out. Because like you said before, we weren't up against these Iraqis that were Saddam loyalists. Those guys didn't have near the level of training or commitment or mindset to go toe-to-toe with us. So we're fighting guys from a lot of other Arab countries. Tunisia, Syria, Morocco, a lot of guys from North Africa, and other countries around. We didn't encounter any Iranian nationals, but of course, like you said, we found out later a lot of that stuff, a lot of those guys were trained in Iran, and those Iran militias were definitely there instigating and starting a fire there. So,
right.
Yeah, so we could tell which families were on our side and which families were, either they were being intimidated, being shaken down by these foreign fighters, or they just didn't want us there. Those were the two reasons that those people would be kind of standoffish to us. But that continued. We continued that, the counter IED, counter indirect fire missions for quite a while. We did some more special operations like driving around in the BMWs and that sort of thing. And then the battalion kept getting hit with mortars, rockets, IEDs. At that point in time, we had several more guys killed in action, a lot more wounded in action. And let's see, we get through summer. I don't know if any big events happened in the summertime as far as operations that we did. We started branching out just a little bit because of the other battalions had left and some war came in. So we just kind of took over a little bit bigger portion of the another AO. So October comes around. The Fallujah talk starts again because General Mattis goes into Fallujah with his security detail and goes and has a meeting with I can't remember who the head was there in Fallujah at the time, but he went and had a meeting with him, and some of his famous quotes are out there from that meeting. But he was one of the guys that you'd want to be your commander in battle. So He basically told them, "Hey,
Right.
stop this, or we're going to kill you all." And so they didn't stop. So he's like, "Well, we got to make do on
Right.
my
Right.
word." So so that starts that talk starts coming around, and then October of well, let me back up. At some point in the summertime, we weren't getting a lot of action at the prison. There were some that company commander. He kind of butted heads with a lot of guys, and I, we didn't see eye to eye on the missions that I thought we were going to be most effective in versus what he did. So I told our platoon commander, "Hey, I want to go support this other company." So we left the prison and went to the Iraqi National Guard facility in Garma, and we supported that other company. We did a lot more. That area had more outside the little suburb of Garma, the town of Garma. They had more vegetation, more trees. There were more canals. So we did more reconnaissance patrols for the infantry there. We did patrols to say whether or not a company or platoon size element could do this or that, or move through this area or that area, or more of that type of stuff. We did some surveillance, not a whole lot, but we started, like I said, we were getting pretty angry that we weren't finding people burying IEDs or shooting mortars at us, because it was happening, but no one was seeing it. And so we were like, you know what, let's start. We're going to go way out. So Garma is east of Fallujah. So we're like, we're going to patrol on foot out toward Fallujah, and at night, in the middle of the night. And we're going to, and this is just me and my team, we're going to start stopping these vehicles coming back toward Garma and searching them. And so we start stopping these guys and searching their vehicles, and it's nothing. Again, crickets. It's like, dude, what, where are these guys hiding? I mean, it's unbelievable. We did missions. We did days long missions on rooftops, observing these MSRs, where these IEDs were getting laid. Nothing, like zero. And drinking water that was like just below boiling point, because there were water bottles sitting out there in the sun all day for days on end. And it's just like, dude, this is unbelievable. We're getting nowhere with this. And so that happened for a good portion of the deployment at first. And still guys from our battalion getting wounded and killed. And so October rolls around, and October 25th, me and two other guys from my team are about to go on patrol. We're sitting inside the compound there at the Iraqi National Guard outpost, forward operation base there. And there's a courtyard there in the middle. So we're sitting on this cot, a regular, military cot. We're eating chow, MREs, and there's a group of Marines playing soccer in the middle of the courtyard, and they're, right in front of us, essentially. So they're playing soccer, and again, Iraqi National Guard are in the same compound. They're just across on the other side. So which I think this was an inside job, but I hear they're playing the game. We're eating chow, and I hear a rocket go off, like someone shoots a rocket, one of those big ones that hit that schoolhouse that took out our dock. And I heard the shot, and I was like, man, I just heard a shot. And then as soon as I said that, I hear the incoming, and the impact hits basically right in the middle of those guys playing soccer. And that rocket was probably 15 yards from me and my other two guys on my team. The fourth guy on our team was in our room area getting our gear ready. And so that rocket hits. I see the flash, pretty much right in front of me. So I rolled off. I was kind of dazed, but, like all right, what's going on? What's going on? My brain's going haywire. Other two guys, I kind of check the immediate area. Everyone's okay in the immediate area. I go to find my other two teammates. Well, so one of my teammates was, he was inside the building where most of the Marines slept, concrete building, and he had gotten hit in his eye, his right eye, and he had a piece of shrapnel going into his eye, but he wasn't like bleeding severely or anything. Okay, so I go try to find my other two teammates. One of them, he was in the building that was right behind us, concrete building where all the Marines slept, and he had a piece of shrapnel go through his right eye. He wasn't bleeding too bad, but I mean, you could tell he was messed up. But he said he was okay. So I left him, and Corpsman came over, some other Marines came over to take care of him. And then I went over to find my other guy, and he had gotten hit in his collarbone. And he was messed up bad. Like, that piece of shrapnel was fairly large that hit him. Mm-hmm. It hit his left collarbone, and like his shoulder was just completely mangled and disfigured. And you could tell he was in shock. Like, he was going into shock. Corpsmen were treating him and everything. So we started. So my other teammate, I found him, and I said, hey, look, well, before that, I went to go find him, and my arm felt wet, like my whole arm and my shirt on my left side, it felt wet. So I looked down, and I'm bleeding all over the place. And so I actually got a piece of shrapnel in my left shoulder. It was pretty small. It wasn't really that big of a deal, but so I made sure I didn't have a major wound or anything, and I was good. Found the other guy on my team, and he, of course, he didn't get hit. He was in that room. So I said, hey, look, grab all the gear. These two guys got hit. We're going to the battalion, the surgeon, the field surgeon there at the Camp Fallujah, with all these other guys that got hit too in the middle of the soccer game. So he grabbed all our gear. I left with my two teammates on Humvee, and we went to that the battalion aid station there at Camp Fallujah. And we got there and found out that one Marine was killed that was playing soccer. I had went to boot camp with him and SOI with him, so I knew him, but he was in a different battalion, or not battalion, but different company. Right. And then I want to say about 20 other Marines were wounded that were playing soccer there. So some more than others, of course, but sure. But those two guys, my two teammates, had to get flown to Germany. So they flew to Germany, C-130, surgeries and that sort of thing. I stayed behind, of course, because I was good. My arm was a little bit sore, but it wasn't bad. So I still got that shrapnel in my body somewhere. Right.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I took a couple days off. Thankfully found out that both of those guys survived, my two teammates. So we were good there. And I want to say I went, maybe me and my partner, we kind of integrated with another team and made a 6-man team. And we did a couple more patrols, and then started gearing up for the second Battle of Fallujah, because we knew that was going to go down, because we had gotten orders to pack up all our gear, like everything in our room, personal items, everything, just pack it up. The whole battalion had to pack up all their stuff. Yeah. And so we got all our stuff ready, and we were getting ready because we were doing rehearsals. We were doing the whole deal. So
yeah. That first of all, I just want to say thank you for, you know, being able to share some of these intimate details with myself, the listeners. Um, this is stuff that, I, I mean, I know it's on your mind every
Mm-hmm.
day. And, this is the stuff, but I also want to point out, especially people watching on YouTube, look at him, look at Grant. He's a normal, functioning human being. I was on a show talking about PTSD with somebody else the other day, and that was one of the things that I want people to understand that. And I'm not classifying or diagnosing Grant by any means, but he's been through some trauma. I mean, he has been through some real no shit trauma, and we all deal with it in different ways. We're not all crazed people that are out here running around, tearing up our own country because we have PTSD. So, or because we've lost friends and teammates. So, but thank you for being able to share these stories. This is exactly what I really just want people to know and hear from people just like you, out on the front lines. I mean, it's just incredible. So thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. It's my pleasure. I mean, I agree. It's the stories need to be told because they're going to die with history if not. So,
Absolutely. And we're going to start wrapping this up for today. And then and I've got a few things I want to kind of touch on before we go, so the next episode, we'll get into the big battle of Fallujah, with you guys. But I want to point out, like, definitely to the listeners, with the IEDs and the indirect fire. So you could definitely hear in his tone, telling the story, how frustrating it is for all of us. We are here because we think we're liberating a country. We don't want to destroy you. I mean, if, we're going to give you an opportunity to choose how you live, actually, but whatever. But when there's this invisible enemy that keeps harming us and we can't fight back, it is so frustrating. And one thing that we've learned over time, and again, this is 2004, he's experienced this. So some of my later deployments, when we had a little bit more technology with the UAVs on station a lot and different things, we still had trouble. We called them poo sites, point of origin.
yeah.
Okay. So where these guys were launching the rockets, these guys would be so creative. And in other words, like, let's just say they have the timer set or some kind of mechanism and a block of ice that would take like 5 hours to melt, and then the rocket would launch. So going back to what you're saying, you would never see anybody. You knew exactly where it's launched from, but there was nobody there within like the last 12 hours. Like, how is that possible? That's how it's possible. And these guys that Grant's talking about coming from other countries, these are skilled fighters, skilled bomb technicians that brought all of these warfighting skills into Iraq. And this is something that I've described to people was in Iraq, because of the easy access to get into the country and the terrain. This was any enemy of America's Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
This was their chance to do harm to us because it was easy to get in there. IEDs, rockets are cheap. The Chinese made billions of them. The Iranians made billions of them. Iranians were funding much of it. And so these people were coming from all over just to get a shot to kill a U.S. Marine.
Yeah.
Then they started, when they started gaining ground with the populace, then they started going, oh, wait a minute, man, I can kill a Marine and become powerful and run this city or whatever they want to do. So, so it's so tough with these indirect fires. And, we didn't have a little bit, not necessarily on the political side, but you remember we're fighting two land wars at the same time. And in 04, So Grant mentioned, how we didn't have enough personnel to do certain things. So we couldn't just occupy the entire city. Um, First of all, we didn't have enough people to do that. Second of all, at the time, we didn't want to because we didn't want, we were trying to let them live their life. Like we didn't want to be that invader, you know?
Yeah.
Um, right or wrong, that was our philosophy. That was how we were doing it. And, so yeah, we couldn't have people in these streets and all the time that would catch these guys with the IEDs and the rockets. And so it's definitely just frustrating. And then, so what are we supposed to do? But just sit there in our fob and take it. And, that's when General Mattis, God love him, you know, just did his thing. And, it's boots on ground is the only way you're going to win a war, period. So if it's a fight that y'all want, then it's a fight you're going to get. And especially with General Mattis around, it's not just going to be, Cobras and 64s and fixed wing. It's going to be some Marine infantry and snipers that are come door to door. So, and he warned them. I mean, he did. So, but again, he told them, we're coming. Stop the mortars, stop the rockets, stop harassing the people. Because that was the other thing, right? So you and I talked about how one of our things about even serving was, look, I want to defend my country, but I'm also willing to go and fight for those that can't fight for themselves. There's a lot of people in that part of the world that fit that bill. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Because, they are, women. They're not allowed to read, write. They can't do anything. I mean, the Taliban, obviously. So, there's a lot of people that did want us there, wanted like, oh, you can help us. But there's all those foreign fighters came from outside that didn't. So the challenge of trying to figure out who those people are. And again, if we can't be in the whole city, well, when we leave during the day or at night or whenever, right, then the bad guys come in and shake them down and beat them down. And, so now they're like, well, God, what do I do, man? And then the reality is, look, we're not going to stay. We can't be there forever. And so these people, kind of look at it like, well, shit, man, the American's going to leave eventually. So in order to maybe stay alive, I've got to, listen to this bad guy over here. Or if he pays me $20 to put this rocket over here, or he chooses not to kill my brother if I go and put this rocket over here.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so that's the kind of people that, Grant was definitely having to, establish relationships with on these streets. It's not that they necessarily maybe wanted to launch the rocket, but they had to do what they had to do to stay alive because their family members were being threatened. And it's a no-win situation for anyone. War is ugly. The American warfighter, from my experience, is the last one that wants to go to war. I mean,
yes.
I mean, you and I know firsthand our ability, which is to destroy a lot of people and infrastructure. And also we understand that we're going to lose some too. And sometimes it's just like, can we talk about this?
Yeah.
I mean, Mike, do you really want to feel the wrath of the United States Marine Corps and 2 aircraft carriers and a couple of Army divisions? Like, is that, I mean, so a little bit on the tangent here, but, General Mattis, like, look, okay, so if that's what you want, if that's the fight you picked, well, I mean, we're coming and we're coming with a big hammer, and we're not coming with the BB gun. And, and so a lot of people, a lot of listeners, if they've watched some of the stuff that was going on in that second battle of Fallujah in 2004 on the TV, and there's a lot of destruction, of streets, buildings and stuff like, well, I mean, we will execute to accomplish our mission. So
exactly.
You had a chance. You had a chance to not do that. So, man, some good stuff, man. Good stuff. I'm even just trying to process it all.
Yeah.
It's a lot, man. It's a lot. And I just, again, I know I keep thanking you, but I just really, really do thank you. Appreciate you sharing this stuff. And, it's important. It's important for America to know who you are and your stories and who you represent as a whole. And I just, it's great that we can do this. So, any notes, any comments before we kind of wrap it up, and then we'll tie it up and head into part 2, Battle of Fallujah, next time.
No, I mean, there was just a real short that time between the time that rocket hit us, my team, and the other Marines there. Between the time we started Fallujah was a very short period of time. And at the time we got hit with that rocket, we didn't, at least at my level, we didn't know that we were we weren't going to be doing that. We didn't think so at all at that point. And then, a few days later after a mission, they're like, hey, it's time to go. It's go time, so, it happened pretty quick after that rocket attack.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's probably a trademark of General Mattis, meaning this is what I said. This is what happened, and I'm not giving you any chance to get your shit together. We're coming.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no doubt.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely interesting on that timeline there, and how kind of quick that was between the rocket and pack your bags, let's go. We're coming through Fallujah. So yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, when we talk about who the people of Fallujah are, and who the enemy is, who are your friends, and innocent people throughout there, and oh my gosh, it's tough. I mean, little side note too. I mean, we went through it early in Afghanistan, man, with the Chechen. You mentioned a lot of North African fighters came into Iraq, so the Chechen were big in Afghanistan, and those, I mean, the Navy SEALs and the Marine recon teams, and our 18 series guys ran into those bastards all the time, and they're like, these are well trained, but they were some redheads and red beards. Are like, you're not, a Taliban guy. So it's tough.
Yeah, those guys.
I think it's good for the people.
I was going to say on like Takur Gar and Operation Anaconda, and they encountered those guys quite often.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's important to note from people like you, from people like me, that were on the ground while I'm in the air. But so, more than maybe than the general on the TV or the politician on the TV, I think it's important for people that were on the ground to really explain some of this stuff to the American people. It wasn't all Iraqi or Afghanis, people that we're encountering. Some of our fiercest fights were against foreign nationals, which just, it's a mess. It's a mess, man, for sure. So anyway, I keep talking, so, which is great. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks again so much for coming on, sharing this part of your story. So luckily for you all, the listeners, we have at least 2 more stories. The real push through Fallujah, and then, his last story, which is one of the best. really when we kind of talk about his time afterwards and some of the stuff that he's overcome and developed and stuff. So it's really, I mean, really good stuff. But to be determined on that, Grant is going to go take a vacation with his family. So well earned, and enjoy some time with his family. So whenever he gets back, we'll connect and figure out a time to make our next episode to share it with you guys. And then until then, my weekly episode coming up on Sunday. Hey, DART missions, Downed Aircraft Recovery Team. My first time dealing with that in Iraq in 2003 and having to recover downed aircraft. So I'll talk about that, share some of those experiences for sure. So got a lot of good things coming up, good stories, moments, and tough ones too. I mean, tough emotionally, from Grant and for myself. So, hey, so stay tuned. Thanks again for tuning in. All the download, 1,000 downloads. I'm so thankful. Y'all are awesome. And, the best place to catch me again is millersmilitarymoments.com. Keep sending the comments and the notes. And if you have anything you want me to ask Grant, or if you want to ask him, just let me know. And, I'll ask the questions on air. And, that way he can answer your questions specifically. So anyway, great resource out there for you. But anyway, thank you all for listening, and, take care of each other. Reach out if you need help. And if you can help others, I encourage you to reach out and help them. Pay attention to your inner circle, your 3 to 5. You are the ones that can recognize when somebody needs help. And I'm going to be the one to tell you, if that person needs help, they're not reaching out. Okay. They're not reaching out. You've got to reach out to them. Okay. So let's do what we can to make our place just a little bit better. Show some compassion out there to your fellow neighbors. And, let's be the best people that we can be. And until next time, I'll see you later. Peace.